The industry that I started in, it was not focused on supporting founders and entrepreneurs. The sign of success was going and winning a big client like British Petroleum or KPMG. They literally left me cold. All that red tape, all that corporate jargon. I remember I started working for entrepreneurs. It sounds so cheesy, but I felt like I'd come home. Oh, these are my people.
Dalton, serial founder, investor. She's worked with over 600 fast growth startups from Deliveroo to Trip Drinks and is a fierce champion of female founders and underrepresented talent in tech.
I always say the best people just cover themselves in Velcro and all the best talent will stick to them. If you're going to scale a business in the UK, you've got to be a talent magnet. If nobody's going to work for you, you're not going to get anywhere.
Welcome to Screw It, Just Do It, the show for those who decided to screw it and just did it. I'm Alex Chisnall, host of this podcast and co-founder of the Festival of Entrepreneurs at the NEC in Birmingham this October 8th and 9th. This is the podcast that brings you face-to-face with the entrepreneurs and business rebels who threw caution to the wind and built something extraordinary. Quick heads up, registration is now open for this year's Festival of Entrepreneurs. Join us at the NEC in Birmingham on October the 8th and 9th for 2 game-changing days with 200 plus speakers and thousands of ambitious founders. Get your free limited 2-day pass at festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk or click my personal link in the show notes.
Jo, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
Absolute pleasure. So I want to kick things off with the moment that you said to yourself, screw it, I'm going to go out and build something on my own. Can you talk us through that? When was it and what happened next?
Yes, I remember it vividly. I'd just come out of, actually, I did build something with some co-founders, but for me, the moment that I realized that this is down to me, I have a very clear vision of what I want to build, was the start of JD & Co. and the journey from there. I just realized that I think when you talk about entrepreneurship, it was just the moment I realized that what I wanted to do didn't exist. And so I had to build it myself. Some say that entrepreneurs are unemployable. So maybe it was that I was just unemployable. So I had to go and build my own company that would employ me.
It's always that moment when you kind of you think back and you go, if I had to go and get a job, and then you go, no one would actually employ me anymore. I'm literally unemployable. I couldn't take orders from anybody.
Yeah.
Was there like a defining moment that you can remember when you first had an inkling that you wanted to build something yourself?
Yeah, I think coming from the corporate world and especially the industry that I started in, it was not focused on clients, not focused on supporting founders and entrepreneurs. I was in an environment where the sign of success was going and winning a big client like British Petroleum or KPMG, and nothing against them, but they literally left me cold. All that red tape, all that corporate jargon. And I remember I started working for entrepreneurs, and it sounds so cheesy, but I felt like I'd come home. I was like, oh, these are my people. All these years I've been trying to conform to the corporate world and behave a certain way, but actually there they are. So where is the business and the firm that purely supports founders and entrepreneurs? And I couldn't find it, so I built it myself.
I love that. Do you know what? Until you said that, I've never thought about this. But when I got reeled back in after like leaving again corporate with Virgin Atlantic, and my wife had said, you'll always have an affinity with Virgin. I was there for 17 years and I started my first business, but then I got reeled back in by Virgin Startup. And it was exactly as you said, when I started working there and I started helping founders get funding and mentoring, I literally had that moment and going to like my first live event with just founders or wannabe founders. And I was like, these are the people I've been looking for like 20 or 30 years. It's just like, wow, I hadn't thought of that till you said that, but that was same moment for me, I think. That's so interesting, man.
And I love I love disrupting the status quo. The inner rebel in me came out, and I love nosing into new businesses and thinking about new ways to do things. All the way through school and through life until that point, I was always trying to hack the system. And so I think having the opportunity to be immersed in this world where like minds are all trying to find just a quicker, smarter, better way to do something, and that cuts all the red tape, speaks in simple English, no sort of corporate BS. I was sold.
I was sold. Tell us a little bit about JD & Co now then. What do you do? Who do you help? You obviously help entrepreneurs, but can you tell us a little bit about that? Can you remember who the very first client was and how that's the clients that you worked with then are different to who you work with now, if that's changed at all?
Yeah, well, what I'm really proud of what JD & Co do now. Lots of people told me that it couldn't be done. Let's be clear, the recruitment industry has a terrible reputation. I'd rather go to dinner and sit next to, a banker or an estate agent than sit next to a recruiter. That's the sort of level. And the reason for that,
It's a low bar.
it's true. And it is because it's a low bar to entry and that it's a sales environment. And so all of the big recruiters and the industry as a whole, it's a sales-led environment and it works on commission. So they pay everybody like state agency, a low base salary. And so the incentive is to get clients and fill the roles as quickly as possible so you can move on to the next one. So it's a stack 'em high, spray and pray, whatever they call it. And so I hate those. I hate sales environments. I hate commission. So I thought, can I set up a business that actually just focuses on supporting founders on their entrepreneurial journey, is working with clients I love, that I respect, that I want to, they get me out of bed in the morning because they're projects that I want to work on and solve, and work with a great group of people. And so we don't have a sales environment. We don't have any commission for the team. So everybody that works alongside me, our number one focus is to deliver a great service. We're figuring out how to build the right board to take a founder-led business to the next stage of growth, or we're thinking about what they need to do to get their next round of funding. It's all those big moments. And so sometimes they're really complex and they need trusted advisors. And so we work with those businesses sometimes for years to help them at every stage. And if you're on commission, you just need to get in and get out. And a decade later, it works, and we keep getting recommended, and we keep delivering on the projects that we're given.
And can you name like some of those early clients that you work with? Some of the people might know.
Oh gosh, yes. It's funny because it's such a buzz working with early stage founders that then become big unicorns. So whether it's Shazam when it had 7-8 people, or going in to try and work with anybody at the team of Instagram. Instagram only had 10 people when we were trying to pull somebody out of there to come to the UK. And then latterly, it's just working with the founders, and it's really hard with what I do because so much I can't talk about because of confidentiality. But yeah, most of the apps on your phone, most of the services, we've been there at the cutting edge. The beginning of mobility, where Halo was around and we were building their first team. And now everybody uses an app to call a black cab or to get an Uber. And so it's a privilege actually to be at the bleeding edge of those sectors that are just starting before they become mainstream.
And what were you doing before? What you said corporate, but what were you doing exactly before? What kind of roles? What kind of companies were you working for?
So I was working for I worked in the city for over a decade in professional services and working in the financial services, and it was pretty dull. I had a uniform. I had my pinstripe suit and my moleskin notepad and my Mont Blanc pen, and it's just we all looked exactly the same, and there was no room for any personality. And then I sold I actually started in my first job in the city as the trainee and ended up owning a percentage of the company. So that was a really good journey for me, and I'm ever grateful for the founders of that business for all of the training that they gave me. And then I just realized that the corporate world wasn't for me. I had one go at a startup, but working with founders, that I think the lesson I learned was choose your co-founders really wisely. Having worked with over 1,000 founders of businesses since I set up JD & Co, I obsess about that.
1,000. Wow.
Yeah, we've hired over 850 leaders and board members into some of the fastest growing scale ups in Europe, and so I feel very lucky. I'm like my own piece of AI. I've got massive pattern recognition. I can see the ones that are going to fail. I can see the ones that are going to make it, and all of those stages in between.
So that leads me to the question, what are some of the traits that mark out the ones very early on that you think are going to be successful?
Now I can just tell. Now it's a gut feeling, but
Is it? It's a
I
gut
think
feeling. Yeah, that's
it's a gut
interesting.
feeling, but it's somebody who is totally obsessing about the business that they are building, to the point where you try and have a chat with them about what the weather's like or anything else at all, and they bring the conversation right back to the business and the problem that they're trying to solve. I think that they're normally people that have had a bit of life experience already. I can see grit, I can see resilience, and I can see a sort of dogged determination.
Antler, that reminds me. Yeah, so I've worked with them a few times. I know Magnus, the founder of Antler, and yeah, he talks about that, like the grit and the resilience, because they're trying to chuck a load of founders in a room and get them to find their co-founder, come up with the problem, solve the problem. So I mean, it's an interesting concept in itself. They weren't the ones to come up with that idea, but he talks about that a lot as well over the years since I've known Magnus. What about what did you find some of those red flags then that your gut now warned you about for those that maybe you don't want to work with because you can't see them succeeding ultimately?
I think for me, the number one is just if I see that founders, and this is whether we're going to take them on as a client at JD & Co, or I'm going to invest in them, or I'm going to sit on their board, because now at this point in my career, I wear quite a few hats, but for me, it's have they got self-awareness? Have they got the ability to take feedback? And if they haven't got battle scars themselves, and for me, if I could sum up my word for resilience and grit and tenacity and is battle scars. I say to graduates and young people when I've hired them over the last 20 years, I'm going to give you some battle scars, because until you've got them, you're not going to be able to do anything. So I think it's founders that either have got battle scars because they've been through those learnings, or they understand how to work with people to obtain that knowledge and that wisdom to help them on their journey. And then I think the last thing is just the ability to be a talent magnet. I always say the best people just cover themselves in Velcro and all the best talent will stick to them. And that, for me, if you're going to scale a business in the UK, you've got to be a talent magnet. If nobody's going to work for you, you can't attract the very best team, advisors, founders, influence and ambassadors for your brand, you're not going to get anywhere.
It's interesting, and what I've learned from just doing this podcast over the last eight years, like over 650 episodes or whatever it is, and whether it's a Julian Hearn from Huel or it's an Al Barrett from Grenade, they've all, literally every single one has said the same thing, that the hardest thing is to find the right people, and the second hardest thing is to keep the right people. And I'm amazed. I don't know why I'm amazed anymore, because they all come up with the same thing. Whether it's like when I initially spoke to Huel, it was £50 million business that had gone from 750 grand in year one to 50 million in year five, and now it's another 10x and beyond that. And Julian was saying he still tries to be part of that process of the hire, and I'm just like, but how can you do that as you grow and you scale exponentially? It's so difficult, isn't it?
It is the number one challenge. And I think that's why I've been so vocal about trying to change the perception of what trusted talent advisors can be versus the recruiters that you might have had experience of in your early career, because we've all been on the job market as somebody with no experience or a year's experience. And so our idea of the industry is very different to the the sort of advisory firms that are starting to appear now, like JD and Co, that are able to really guide these founders through every stage of the journey, because you need to see all the different flavors of a new CEO that there could be. You need to really take a step back and think, what's the one skill set that if we bring it in is going to unlock the next stage of our growth? And how do we go and find that? And how can we afford it? So it's such a crucial part of scaling, but people still don't take it as seriously, I think, as they should do.
And where did you, or how did you get the reputation that, again, so many really interesting and ambitious people have gone to you, turned to you as like the go-to person to do that? How long did that take? How easy was that to get that reputation? Is it the people you've met and the kind of referrals that you get? I mean, it's always of the people, isn't it? It's always the who you know.
It is. I think I've always been really as authentic as I can be. I have always tried to be as generous as I can with advice and time. And over the years, you just put so much into the Good Karma Bank. it comes back. But we haven't spent any money on marketing, for instance, and we've got over 50,000 followers, and that is genuinely going out and meeting every single person, having a coffee with them, getting to know them, and at the end, they'll follow you to find out more about your journey. And it's as simple as that. There are no shortcuts. It's just about being trusted. That's why I always get very guarded on these sorts of things about the clients and the people and the projects, because you have to be totally trusted. You know, if you're just about to exit one of the co-founders that isn't cutting it and was there right at the beginning, could be a cousin or a best friend or of the other founders. So I spend a lot of the time really conscious that I can't talk too much about a current situation, but I think that pays off over the long term, because they know that I'm somebody that founders can come and just talk about the sorts of real challenges, rather than the public persona that they have to have these days as the CEO of a brand in the public eye. They can have real talk.
Do you turn people down? Like, how often do you turn people down that you think are maybe not the right fit to work with, aren't maybe at the right stage for you to work with, that you feel you can't add the value at that part of the journey? Does that happen quite often?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's nothing worse than just saying yes, yes, yes. Over the years, I think really early on, you always become. I think that's the beauty of age, is the wisdom that I'm so grateful for that you amass over the years. And there are a couple of times early on in my journey where I said yes to clients and the project, because hey, we're a small business, we're trying to pay the bills and earn money, but just knew in my heart that their moral compass and my moral compass and that of my team were not aligned. It's really, really hard to hire for a-holes, isn't it? So we see them now and politely move to one side. But I'm really proud of what we've achieved, because we've backed some real winners. And we become consumers of them as well. Our
Yeah.
office is absolutely full of all the products and all the brands and businesses. So I love that as well. We become part of the team, honorary members.
I was going to say, people who follow you on your Instagram can see that when you've got something like a Heights from, and again, a lot of them are past guests of the podcast, like a Dan Mariserta from Heights, or you've got Laura Fullerton from Monk, and everybody in between. So it's
my new Surrey toothbrush.
Yay!
It is the best on the planet, and I'm not biased at all, even though we've just helped them with a big project.
Yeah, no, we had him on the show, and it's a great story. I really, really like Mark a lot, and again, he's one of those people that you kind of referred to earlier, that you try and have other conversations, but he brings everything back to the journey that they're on at the moment, and the problem that they're solving. When did you first kind of twig that you might be onto something? Because, like you say, everybody has to start from zero with no clients and no staff, etc. At what point, how early on did you actually think, hang on a minute, we're really onto something here?
I was really lucky. The very first client was a founder that was building, and I can't say too much about it, but building the most extraordinary business. And so he found me, and I became his talent advisor, and he had an unlimited budget to go and find out where were the best people in the world in product, in technology, in growth hacking, in brand, in design, etc., etc. And so for me, it was like doing a mini MBA. Because I was able to use all of those insights when I finished that project. But I think it's only really been reconfirmed in the last year, where things are really challenging in the UK economy right now. Let's not, beat around the bush, and being able to help some of those founders unlock growth where it's never been more competitive. Meta is a fool's game, diminishing returns. So, what are the alternatives? And sharing some of those insights and wisdom to help those brands grow and scale, I think, has been invaluable. And getting that feedback, that we've been able to find where is it in their business that they need help and support, and help them grow, whether it's a short, sharp shot of expertise or somebody that's going to actually become their co-founder.
If you're enjoying this conversation and thinking, I need to be around more people like this, then I've got the perfect solution for you. The Festival of Entrepreneurs is where 5,000 to 10,000 ambitious entrepreneurs come together to learn from the people who've actually done it. It's on October the 8th and 9th at the NEC in Birmingham, and I'm giving my listeners free 2-day passes. Real entrepreneurs, real stories, real strategies. Exactly like what you're hearing right now, but live and in person. Go to festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk and get your free 2-day pass before they're gone.
Where do you think the best talent is hanging out right now then? Where's it coming from?
Oh, such a controversial question. I think I was lucky enough in my early career to be hiring the very first product people in tech that they were only in Silicon Valley. We used to have to headhunt them out the valley, persuade them to come to Europe, and really roll out the red carpet for them. Now, product as a function, we've got some superb product leaders across Europe now. When it comes to marketing and growth hacking, there are little pockets of talent all over Europe. But post-COVID, talent is globally mobile. It is everywhere. I think the only change in the last year is that there has been a real move to leaders being in the office. And so the talent pools and where we can go is changing, because although there might be a pocket in Europe for them, or in the US or further afield, I think people are realizing that time in the office together, sharing learnings, learning through osmosis, and just hanging out together is the most important things.
I had a really interesting conversation, I think it must have been last week now, with Piers Linney and, his business Implement AI. So we know what Piers is going to be talking about. And it kind of left me, part excited, but probably 95% terrified as to what the future potentially looks like. And, he's got 2 daughters exactly the same age as my 2 daughters. And I was saying, kind of having those conversations at the moment. I've got, an 18-year-old who's off to performing arts college because she's a dancer, and I love the fact that she wants to pursue her passion. And then I've got a 16-year-old who's finishing her GCSEs on Monday, who'd alluded to potentially becoming a lawyer and going to that route. And he was like, 2 years, and he's an ex-lawyer, right? Corporate lawyer. So he's like, 2 years ago, I would have said, train to be a lawyer. Now, I'm not so sure. And then he started, using examples of, call centers, like, call center workers. There's 1 million of them in the UK. That's going to disappear. I saw Simon Squibb, who I know, been on the show a number of times, saying bus drivers in 5 years, humans won't be driving buses. It's like, wow, where do we even have these conversations with, kids? I know you got kids as well. It's like, how do you even have these conversations? Because things are changing so quickly, right?
I think the biggest challenge with AI, and how I'm seeing it, in real terms in fast scaling businesses is that you just can't plan, because the rate of innovation is so fast that you can't risk dedicating 6 months to building something and the budget that it takes and the resources, because something might come along in 4 weeks' time that means that it's either obsolete or you could build it in 3 days. So I think we've got to lean into our humanity, our creativity, our critical thinking. And when I talk to young people, the two routes that I talk to them about, of course, when it comes to robotics and machine learning, LLMs, that whole space, of course. The other area that I also think is going to explode is maybe saying to your daughters to look at things like philosophy and psychology, because I just think that the human race is going to have some big challenges ahead. Who are we and why are we here, and how, if we don't uh, get our identity through work, how do we identify? So I think there's a lot, but if I think about all the businesses that I've invested in or that I run and oversee as a board, I'm pushing them all to be working alongside an AI tool every single day and figuring out how they can use it to make sure that we're going to have knowledge everywhere, but we're not going to have wisdom. So it's that wisdom that we need to focus on.
Interestingly, she's chosen psychology as one of her A levels, so there we go. That's a good start.
Good. Glad.
And did some of those comments that you just made there, were they kind of reinforced when you went to that event the other night with Brian Johnson that we were just talking about before we started the podcast?
Oh yeah, it was absolutely incredible. I have been an amateur biohacker for about 7-8 years, and the reason for that is it for me is being an entrepreneur in scaling businesses. A year in a scale up is 3 months of in the normal world, as you know. Things happen so quickly. The energy, the sharpness of your mind, your ability to make really quick decisions, and keep the energy is like you're a 10 out of 10 every day. So I started looking into how can I hack at this system, because I need to be on my A game all the time. I'm working with some of the most talented minds in the world who are building things that nobody can even comprehend, but will use every day in the future. So I started biohacking my way through my life. And so the chance to have an evening with Brian Johnson was pretty incredible. And talking about his ideology and is there a future for humanity? Do we need to look at embracing the whole idea of becoming a superhuman or a transhuman, where a lot of your day is going to be governed by an algorithm? And is there an algorithm that we could follow if we release and give over the free will to an algorithm that could ensure that we live for another 100 years? It was an insane evening.
Yeah, I could literally talk to you for the rest of today about that and or biohacking, but because I find it absolutely fascinating. I'd love to have been at something like that because, again, I've followed him for a couple of years now, and it's the whole subject's fascinating, and he's clearly a fascinating person as well. But let me bring it back to something you talked about earlier, which was leadership. When it comes to progress on inclusion in startup leadership, are we still miles off, or are we close to cracking it?
I'd like to say that we're closer, but we're still miles off. And I think what I've noticed is that JD & Co have had huge success building more inclusive leadership teams and boards. As stats buck all of the industry trends in terms of the amount of women and underrepresented groups that we have placed onto boards and C-suites over the last decade. But we're still seeing huge prejudice, and especially I think at the moment with the economy being so challenging, the investors in particular, rather than the entrepreneurs, the investors that are involved around them, maybe when there are two people for the CEO role, there's one that's more traditional, there's one that might be able to unlock the next stage of growth. They're going for the more traditional route, and unfortunately traditional still, if you close your eyes, it's the middle-aged white man in a suit.
Which leads me nicely on to when it comes to women, specifically starting and exiting businesses. Is it still as hard as we think it is? Have things moved at all in the last decade or so since you've been in business and since you've been recruiting talent?
Oh yeah, when I first set up JD & Co, I didn't work with a single female founder. And now I am hugely privileged to be able to support some of the most talented entrepreneurs in the UK who are also women. I think what's also helped is I decided about 6 years ago to start investing in female founders. They get so little of the investment pot, as I'm sure anybody who listens to your podcast knows the terrible statistics and the amount of funding that goes into UK startups that are set up by women hasn't changed in a decade. But I think the awareness has changed, and I am seeing that things are starting to move, but nowhere quickly enough, in my opinion.
What do you think's still broken that could still be improved?
I think it's just access to smart capital. I think, there's lots of people that can write checks, but I think I'm quite an unusual investor in that I invest in women, and I think it goes back to probably if somebody was psychoanalyzing me, probably thinking that my money wasn't good enough and that I couldn't just give my money because I'd also need to add a huge amount of value just to be able to get a seat at the table or to get on the cap table. And so I think women they need people to be talking about them in a room that they're not in. They need introductions. They need funding. They need funding and backing, especially in areas that traditional investment routes, the VC and the PE community, just have neglected up to now.
And any female founders that you'd like to highlight for people listening and watching to go and check out who they are and what they're building?
Oh gosh, that's a mean question, because I champion every single female founder I have ever met. And if I can't invest in them, if we cannot support them at JD and Co, if I can't, I will always at least connect them to somebody, or I will do one thing for them or buy their product. But I have to talk about the founders that I'm more closely involved in. So I'm very proudly sit on the board of two amazing businesses, both female founders. One is one of the biggest pre-loved designer resale platforms in the UK. We're called Sign of the Times, and we now sell in over 20 countries. We've got a brilliant flagship in Chelsea, and we also sell online. Check out the Instagram. The reels go viral, and the founder of that business just never ceases to amaze me with her resilience and grit. And that is growing really quickly at the moment. So I'm really proud of that. The other businesses, Monk, you mentioned earlier, I think Laura's been on the podcast. All I can say is investing in hardware. Hardware is hard. Let's just, it's as simple as that. And the amount of resilience trying to build something. I've been an investor for 3 years. It was literally an idea on a deck when I put my money in because I believed in Laura and everything she was building. And so 3 years later, to see a physical product, and we've just started selling it, and we're in Selfridges and people are buying them, and we're starting to see people post about plunging and doing the breathworks and the guided breathworks, and then sharing their story on Instagram. Honestly, it makes my heart sing. And all the other female founders that I have invested in and backed.
Yeah, no, we love Laura. It's been on twice, if not 3 times on the show actually over the years since she started the idea. Even went for a very cold plunge in the middle of January with her in the Serpentine.
I saw that.
Yeah. As you know, I go in the sea every day, but that literally took my breath away when I went in there. It's like that still not moving pool of water,
I think that's my investor and board director going above and beyond. I was at an event and we needed some content. And so I just sort of looking around going, okay, I think I just better volunteer. So yeah, I did an interview while in an ice bath.
Brilliant. Well done, you. Well done, you. How long did you last?
Long enough for a couple of takes and quite a few questions. Yeah, it was. I don't know how I got through it actually, but yeah, great fun. And you have to. I'm all in. If I'm backing something, I'm backing it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Actually, I'm speaking to Pip Murray soon, and I think I interviewed Pip from Pip and Nut maybe. Crikey, year 1 of this show, like 7 or 8 years ago, and I've kind of seen some of her LinkedIn posts recently, and they really seem to have motored on and been doing incredible things. And I love her as well. I think she's got a great story, so I'm really excited to have that conversation again. So
we massive fans of Pip and Nut.
Thought you might be. Okay, so going to finish up with a quick fire round. So first thing that comes into your head, short and sweet. First off the bat for you, Joe, is going to be, what is an entrepreneur?
A fixer, somebody that builds things that people need that doesn't exist, joins dots. They're my people. That's what entrepreneurs are. My people, they're the backbone of the UK economy, in my humble opinion. And they see things, they see gaps. I love the way their brains work.
Yeah, without being controversial or political, more people in the government need to realise that they are the backbone of the economy and act accordingly. What does this country need to do to get more scale-ups, to get more businesses that are, going from 7 or 8 figures to beyond, to become, those unicorn businesses?
I think everybody talks about the infrastructure, the tax system, all of those things. But for me, I feel like it's a culture shift. I think as a society in the UK, we need to get behind our British entrepreneurs. We need to celebrate them rather than trying to pull them down. I think we need to realise what an enormous impact they have on the UK economy. We need to make it easier to help them build, remove the red tape, and just have bigger ambition. We need to stop thinking so small and start thinking a little bit bigger.
Great. And what constitutes a scale-up business for you, having worked with many, many of them?
I think for me, scale ups, it's not really, it's things that can scale up, and there's loads of different ways to do that. But for me, it's about focusing on becoming the category king or queen. So to dominate a category. And that's what I think that UK businesses should focus on. You know, when you're in that sea of loads and loads of competitors, there's going to be one that is going to become the dominant brand. And so, as scaling up to get to that point, whatever that means for your sector or category, and it's huge job creation, and it's huge opportunity to build the sectors that are going to make the UK the leaders on the global scale. So we need to perhaps put more attention to scale ups rather than just starting up. You know, they always say that for me, the businesses and the real challenge is 10 million to 50 million turnover. You know, that sort of 0 to 10 is the hardest thing that you're ever going to do. 10 to 50 million is impossible, and 50 million is inevitable, or whatever the phrase is. But it's that bit in the middle where I think we need to work smarter and come together, because we all know that collectively, but I don't think those businesses get the right support.
And why do you think the US is better than us at producing those scale-ups and those unicorn businesses? Is it, just the fact that there's more people, it's more positive, it's easier access to capital? Is it what else is missing?
I just think they've just got more audacity. You know, they just think about everything on a bigger scale. I do think they have more second time founders, third time founders. So founders there, I'm really passionate about keeping and recycling wisdom back into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's one of my big values and mantras, and I'm building something in stealth to try and solve that at the moment. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about on a future podcast. So I think it's trying to they just, they've got bolder capital, as you said, but they're just more, they think bigger and make, and culturally, as I said, culture in the UK compared to the US, they embrace risk. They want you to go for it and grow something exceptional.
Talking about what you're working on in stealth, then, can you talk about that at the Festival of Entrepreneurs this October, or what can you talk about? What can people look forward to hearing from you?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me to speak. I think it's going to be a brilliant few days, but also a place where we can share some of that wisdom. As I said before, with the adoption of AI, knowledge, everybody's going to have all the knowledge that they need at their fingertips, but what we need is that wisdom of experience, battle scars, and how we can recycle it back into the UK entrepreneurial and founder ecosystem. So I'm hoping I can share some of the mistakes of some of the investments that I've made, and some of the learnings, and also some of the founders that I've been lucky enough to sit alongside as they've grown some of the biggest and best brands that have come out of the UK, and try and distill that down into what are the practical, actionable things that you can take away from this festival and go back to your desk and action right now. Whether it's building a growth hacking engine, whether it's making the bold decision to finally get rid of that one co-founder or somebody that, just talent has a sell by date, and just giving you the confidence to know it's not just you thinking, oh, I've got this person and they're just, they're overwhelmed and they can't, I don't think they're going to get us to the next stage of their journey, and just making that practical, actionable, how to build your first board. What do you need? Do you need an advisory board, or do you need this sort of full of corporate governance, fully fledged board?
That'd be brilliant. And it's exactly what we want. And I think that's what's, missing at the moment. Difficult one for you to kind of finish up on, last two. Which founder do you admire the most?
That's such a hard question. I tell you what, I'm just, I've got, as all founders and entrepreneurs, I've got recency bias. So I was lucky enough a few days ago to spend time with Michael Acton Smith, who I think is one of our best British entrepreneurs. He's built the first $1 billion mental health unicorn. There were 4 years when he was building Calm where nobody would invest in him. He also is a third, fourth time founder. He's the creator of Moshi Monsters. He built Mind Candy, Firebox. So, and I know this because I interviewed him many years ago, and I'm sure you know, Alex, once you interview somebody, all of those statistics and memorable moments stick with you. But the way that he's still so down to earth, so generous with his time, he's somebody I really admire and aspire to be one day.
Amazing. Well, look, that was fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed it. Answered all of my questions and more. I'm really excited to meet you in person in October, or maybe before then. We shall see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the festival. See you there.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
That conversation just proves something. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So here's my challenge. Upgrade your network. The Festival of Entrepreneurs is happening October the 8th and 9th, and I'm giving my listeners free 2-day passes to get in the room with 5,000 to 10,000 entrepreneurs who are actually building something. This is where the risk takers, the game changers, and the people who've decided to screw it and just do it come for inspiration, education, and connection. Don't just listen to their success stories, go meet the people living them. Grab your free pass now, because the biggest risk isn't taking a chance, it's missing the opportunity entirely. If this conversation resonated with you, don't just sit there, act on it. Make sure you follow or subscribe for more game-changing conversations, and remember, the only thing standing between you and your business breakthrough is the decision to screw it and just do it.